Welcome back to the Now Morning Show. It is Tobago Thursday. I'm Kimberly D'Souza. Now, June is fast approaching, and with it comes the rainy season. And the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Management has partnered with the Tobago Emergency Management Agency, and they're actually discussing a public education caravan in Tobago. So joining me on set is actually Mr. Anwar Baksh, who is the Planning and Development Officer at the Odpm. And I also have on Zoom the Training Officer at TEMA, Mrs. Melissa Yearwood-Jack. So, of course, good morning, Mr. Baksh. And Melissa, I hope you can hear me. Good morning as well.
I'm hearing you clearly. Good morning.
Good morning. Now, I'll start with you first, Mr. Baksh. How did this partnership between the Odpm and TEMA happen?
You know, so disaster management is everybody's business, and therefore we must all be inclusive, we must be participative, and we must be together. And therefore, Tobago is no different from Trinidad. We're Trinidad and Tobago. And therefore, Odpm, as the National Coordinating Agency for Disaster Management within Trinidad and Tobago, has that responsibility to ensure that we take care of both islands. So therefore, while we have TEMA, who deals with the response aspect of Tobago for disaster management, we have Odpm that oversees Trinidad and Tobago. We have the municipal corporations and the Ministry of Rural Development and Local Government. So that partnership is always there. It is important that we ensure that we are always engaged with each other to know what we are doing with each other and by ourselves to ensure that our nation is prepared and alert and ready for a disaster should it happen.
Nice. Now, the NDPPM, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. What exactly is that program?
So National Disaster Prevention and Preparedness Month is a cabinet-declared month for the month of May, which really precedes the wet season, really, to allow Trinidad and Tobago to become actively engaged from all levels in terms of your individual and family, your civil society, your corporations, your communities, your national agencies, as well as your regional agencies to become prepared and ready for the wet and hurricane season. You know, we share tips. It's a real education and advocacy strategy to get persons to become aware of what are their risks, to know their hazards, to be prepared and to take preparatory measures to ensure that your homes are secured, that your community is ready to respond to disaster should there be.
Nice. Now I'm heading over, of course, to Mrs. Yearwood-Jack. Ms. Yearwood-Jack, I know that the caravan is coming in Tobago. I believe it's coming tomorrow. I mean, how does it feel to have that caravan across in the island?
It feels great. The collaboration has always been wonderful between us and the Odpm. So it was just natural for us to collaborate at this venture. We always work well. So the caravan is at the Port Mall in Scarborough, Tobago, and we are in Tobago responsible for contacting the stakeholders in Tobago for the caravan.
Nice. And I mean, like, so what other projects can we look out to? Because, I mean, I know that TEMA is on the ground and they're working and they're doing their thing. So how important is it that the partnership is actually happening at this time now?
The partnership is, it's very important at this time now. You know, the rainy season and the hurricane season has begun. And we haven't had any partnerships on the books for the rest of the year, but I know that we will, especially because the rainy season has begun. And we partnered or we collaborated a couple weeks ago with the Make Cities Resilient workshops that happened in Tobago and Trinidad with the UN, the United Nations. So I know that going forward we will have no problem partnering in the future.
Nice. And of course, Mr. Baksh, I mean, she just dropped that important information there. Can you share some more thoughts on that?
Certainly. So Making Cities Resilient is an initiative under the United Nations Disaster Risk Reduction Office, the regional office at Panama for the Americas and the Caribbean. And the intent of that project is to really understand what is the resiliency of Tobago should a disaster happen. So what has happened over the week of May 9th to 13th, we had a delegation from the UNDRR's office in Panama. Now it was a week of activities both on Trinidad as well as in Tobago, but let me focus on the Tobago aspect. We brought together policy makers, local authorities of Tobago, as well as grassroots citizens of Tobago and community members to really undertake a scorecard assessment of Tobago, see where are the gaps, what are the challenges, what are the requirements to make Tobago a resilient island. And this will now be compiled into a report and develop a DRR, or Disaster Risk Reduction Plan, for the next 5 years for Tobago. So it's an initiative that ODPM's partnered with UNDR to bring to Trinidad and Tobago. And then, of course, because we have that responsibility for both islands, we said let's pilot it in Tobago. Now, important for us to note also as part of that week was a risk perception study that took place on the island of Tobago, and it's actually the first in the region to take place. It's 1 out of 4 that will be taking place. And this risk perception study allowed persons to understand how do we perceive risk. So as someone who's involved in disaster management, I may think of risk as something totally different, right, compared to someone who has no idea or just think the rain is coming, I don't know what to do. And therefore it allows us to interpret risk and see, you know, what should we really look for in a policy? What should we look for in a plan? What should we put into place to ensure that our people are ready and prepared?
Good. Now, Mrs. Yawajak, I'm coming back to you. I know that the TEMA has this CERT, I think it's the 1,000 strong program. I mean, are the volunteers ready? Have you at least gotten at least close to 1,000? Because we know the rains are coming, and so we want the island to be prepared.
Well, we have on the books close to 600, not close to 1,000 as yet. We have trained about 300 persons in various areas in disaster management, basically basic disaster management preparedness in our incident command system. We had them training out in our Tobago disaster management crisis platform. We gave them a little training in radio communications, as well as minor equipment that they may use in the field, for example, chainsaws and generators. So about 300 or so were trained thus far.
Nice. So the island of Tobago is ready should those torrential rain come?
Yes.
That's good to hear. Now, Mr. Baksh, I'm coming back to you. What other programs does the ODPM have just to prepare the country for what we are gearing up for by next week?
So ODPM is continuously working. You know, while we focus on NDPPM, and allow me just to go back to say that this Caravan in Tobago really brings together not only ODPM and TEMA, but it's a caravan that allows for persons all involved at society levels from different groups. So Trinidad Tobago Met Service, Trinidad Tobago Fire Service, National Commission for Self-Help. These people will be available to bring to the population and to the public information that are pertinent and that people are required to have, but they don't go forward to get it. And this is something that has been happening throughout the entire month of May. We had San Fernando, we had Port of Spain, we've been in Pinal, we've been to Carnage, we're going to Sangre Grande. So I hope to see you, if not in Tobago, Friday. Because, you know, this afternoon we go across to Tobago for tomorrow's event, and then we come back for Saturday's event in Sangre Grande. So I hope to see you in one of those. But besides those things, we have a continuous education campaign that's going on. We are available to go to any school that requires us to do a presentation or to become engaged. We have been doing school drills with many schools, and I must support the initiative of school drills to ensure that our schools are safe, because there's a new initiative that we are hoping to bring to Trinidad and Tobago, which is the Caribbean Safer Schools Initiative, to ensure that our children are protected and that our schools are secure during a disaster. So while we have not only the education strategy, there are other big strategic projects that are happening in the background to ensure that we are moving disaster management in Trinidad and Tobago at an advanced stage, because, you know, the Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction, we are 2015 to 2030 has laid out priority actions for us to ensure that by 2030 Trinidad and Tobago becomes a disaster-ready and resilient nation as much as possible. And us being the implementing focal point appointed by Cabinet for this must ensure that we do our part. But we can't do our part alone. You know, Trinidadians has this mindset that God is a Trini. I'm sad to say God is no longer a Trini. You know, we have seen it happen. We have seen the
time
impacts,
and time again, yes.
And therefore, it's everybody's business. I mustn't be the one stretching my hand alone. One hand don't clap. So I need persons to become involved. Don't just sit and say, what do I do in the event of a disaster? Or my roof is blowing off. The government isn't doing this to me. I need persons to become involved and say, let me take proactive measures and say, okay, I'm going to secure my roof. Yeah. I'm going to clear my drains. You know, we love to say the drains in front of our house belongs to the regional corporation. But it's my drain. If I don't clean it in front of my house, then it's going to flood my yard. And it's going to
cause a really, really bad problem.
If I don't trim the trees around my house, then the tree is going to fall on my roof. So we have a personal responsibility. And I really, really want to beg Trinidad and Tobago, because it's our responsibility as citizens that we are safe and that we take our safety priority first before we see about our neighbors. So furnish your house before you furnish others.
And I love that we're going to leave it right there. Furnish your house before you furnish others. Mr. Bax, thank you so much for joining us. And of course, Ms. Yearwood, thank you as well for joining us and just sharing about this public education campaign that's going to be happening in Tobago tomorrow. You're on the Now Morning Show. We're going to take a break and be right back. You know what to do. Stay with us.